What most people don't know is that this relentless search for validation, this need to be admired, it's not just a personality trait, it's the enemy's main tactic. And according to the greatest mystic of our time, Saint Padre Pio, this modern vanity is not just an innocent sin. It's a direct path to the ruin of your soul. I know how it is. We live in an era where the perfect life is just a click away. We see a friend's feed and think, why is his life so much more interesting than mine? We post a picture and keep checking the likes. What should be a moment of joy turns into a public evaluation of our self-esteem. But vanity is not just a problem of our time. It is one of humanity's oldest weaknesses, a disease that manifests in every era and in all types of people. It's not about having the best clothes or the most expensive car, but about the relentless pursuit of being better. It's a root that branches out in different areas of life, eating away at the soul from the inside. Think with me. What defines vanity today? It's the need to look good. But good in whose eyes? Vanity makes us prisoners of a mirror that is not ours, but the gaze of others. We become actors, personas that need to be perfectly presented in every situation. At work, we need to be the most competent, the most dedicated. In the family, the most generous, the most understanding. And on the internet, the happiest, the most well-occupied, the most enlightened. It's a spiritual exhaustion. And the most serious problem is that we don't call this pain by its true name. We call it anxiety, insecurity, the search for success. But Padre Pio, with his supernatural vision, knew that the true name of this is vanity, and he saw the danger hidden in each of its three main masks. Another vanity is physical vanity. This is the most obvious and also the most deceptive. It's not just about makeup or clothes. It's an obsession with the body, with youth, with the image we project to the world. It's the vanity that makes us spend hours in the gym, not to take care of our health, but to have the perfect body that will attract compliments. It's the time lost in front of the mirror, not to prepare ourselves, but to adore ourselves. It's the pain felt when we age because our identity was tied to something impermanent. The vanity of appearance is a denial of the body as the temple of the Holy Spirit. Instead of being a sacred place, the body becomes an object of worship, a trophy to be displayed. It's an idolization of the physical I. Padre Pio warned about this very directly. He saw that behind exterior beauty, there often hid an empty soul, a soul that had exchanged God's love for the applause of the world. For him, a soul at peace with God doesn't need compliments to feel complete. It finds its beauty in being a child of God. Intellectual and professional vanity is the vanity of the wise. It's the need to be the smartest, the most successful, the one who knows more. Think about the workplace. That colleague who doesn't accept a no for an answer, who needs to be the hero of the team, who steals credit from others for themselves. They don't work for a greater purpose. They work to feed their ego. In social environments, it's that person who, in a conversation, always has to share information that no one else knows. They boast about their diplomas, the books they've read, their travels. They're not trying to share knowledge, they're trying to show off. Their motivation is to demonstrate to others how superior they are. And the most dangerous thing is that this vanity is subtle, disguised as ambition, effort, excellence. But deep down, it's a wall that prevents us from learning from others, from accepting criticism, and most importantly, from putting ourselves on equal footing with our brothers and sisters. Padre Pio teaches us that true wisdom is not in knowing everything, but in recognizing that we know nothing. and that all wisdom comes from God. There is also spiritual vanity, the most dangerous vanity of all. It hides within the church, within prayer groups, within ourselves. It's the need to appear holy. It's the person who prays loudly in church so everyone hears them. The one who shares photos of their charitable works so everyone knows how good they are. The one who boasts about having read the entire Bible or having done a strict fast. Spiritual vanity makes us turn our life of faith into a performance. What should be an intimate moment between us and God becomes a spectacle for others. The enemy loves spiritual vanity. He makes us believe we are growing in faith, but in reality, we're just growing in pride. Our motivation is not the love for God, but the love for the holy self. Padre Pio, who was the greatest example of humility, saw this with terrifying clarity. He knew that charity done to be seen is not charity, it's vanity. And prayer done to be heard by men is not prayer, it's theater. Padre Pio's warning. Padre Pio didn't talk about vanity the way we do today, as a mere concern with appearance. For him, vanity was a spiritual virus, disguised as something good to corrode the soul from within. He saw this disease not just in those who cared about fashion, but in those who saw themselves as intellectually superior, in those who sought applause rather than the grace of God, in those who thought of themselves as more holy than others. He saw vanity in everything, and he knew with a terrifying certainty that vanity is one of the greatest barriers between the human soul and God's mercy. He saw with a clarity we often lack that pride and vanity are the same poison, just in different doses. Pride is the root, the sin of Lucifer. Vanity is the flower that blooms from this root, fragrant and seemingly harmless, but it attracts the bees of temptation. We worry about the grave sin, the one we confess kneeling with shame. But what about the small daily sins, the little lies to look better, the silent judgment of others, the time we waste seeking approval that never fills us? What Padre Pio warns us about is that these small sins are like little cracks in the roof of our soul. One by one, they let the rain of the world in, corroding the structure until the whole house falls. Vanity is the entrance. The enemy doesn't need a big sin. It disguises itself as a compliment, as perfection, as the need to be loved, and it steals your heart little by little. It makes you love yourself so much that there is no room left to love God. Vanity is the denial of God because it puts the creature in the place of the Creator. Padre Pio, with his vision, didn't just see the clothes or makeup. He saw the soul of the person being eaten away, the light of faith dimming under the weight of self-importance. It's as if vanity creates a bubble around the soul. A bubble made of self-obsession, of insecurity disguised as superiority, of fear of being seen as common. This bubble becomes denser, more impenetrable. It prevents God's grace from entering to heal, to illuminate. And at the same time, it prevents our true inner light, the light that comes from the Holy Spirit, from shining for others. We become trapped in this bubble, and the world only sees an empty image, a shell. Vanity is the prison of the ego. It's a vicious cycle. We do something to be praised, the praise feeds us, but it doesn't fill us. And then we need to do something even bigger to receive more praise. It's a race without end, and the prize of this race is emptiness. Padre Pio saw that vanity was one of the devil's greatest traps because it attacks our very identity. It makes us believe that our identity comes from what we do, what we have, what people think of us, when our identity should come from who we are, children of God. A soul that has its identity rooted in God doesn't need human approval. It knows its value and dignity. A vain soul, on the other hand, is always begging. And begging in the spiritual world is a weakness that the enemy exploits mercilessly. He warned us of this weakness because it's subtle. We don't think that a compliment can be a danger, that a photo can be a burden, that a speech can be a trap. But it's exactly in the little acts that our vanity manifests and strengthens. Vanity, deep down, is a sick self-love that blinds us to our true condition and to the need to surrender ourselves to God. It's the first step toward perdition because it puts us at the center of the universe in the place that belongs to God. We need to understand what Padre Pio saw with his heart, not just with his mind. And the most powerful way to understand this is with a real story. There was a young woman named Elisa. She lived in the 1950s, in the vibrant and elegant city of Rome. Elisa was beautiful, and not only that, she cultivated this beauty with an almost religious zeal. Her clothes were always the most elegant, her shoes custom-made, her hairstyles copied from the most famous magazines. She was Catholic, attended Mass regularly, and thought beauty was a gift from God. She told herself, "It's a sin to hide the beauty that God gave me." And with that, she allowed herself to shine in society, feeling at each step like the center of attention, the star of the room, the woman everyone admired. Elisa prayed the rosary, went to Mass, and confessed her sins. But deep down, what she was seeking was not God's grace, but the applause of men. Her faith was, without her knowing it, serving her vanity. Her life was an incessant pursuit of being noticed, being envied, being the example of perfection. Her soul, beneath the layer of elegance and smiles, was gradually becoming hollow, starving for validation. She was like a well that, instead of being filled with the living water of grace, was filled with the dry sand of pride. One day her mother convinced her to take a trip to San Giovanni Rotondo to confess with Padre Pio. Elisa hesitated. "Why go so far to confess with an old friar?" she asked. She feared the long line, the simplicity of the place, and the lack of glamour she so dearly loved. But for the sake of her mother, she finally gave in. She arrived there, and the scene was chaotic for her refined taste. People from all classes, all ages, all appearances mixed in a huge line, waiting patiently for a touch of grace. Elisa waited for hours. Her vanity was being tested every minute. She felt uncomfortable, dirty, out of place. Finally, it was her turn. She entered the small dark room, smelling of incense, sweat, and something else she couldn't identify. Perhaps it was the scent of Padre Pio's suffering, a perfume of holiness that her vain soul couldn't decipher. She knelt and with a trembling voice began her confession. She confessed the sins she considered normal, small lies, some harmless gossip. She didn't mention her vanity because she didn't see it as a real sin, just a trait of her personality. Padre Pio, with his grave voice, which seemed to come from another world, interrupted her. "Daughter," he said, "you kneel before God, but your heart is kneeling before your mirror. You came here to ask for forgiveness, but your greatest sin you hide." Elisa turned pale. What was he seeing? He continued, and his words were like daggers, but with the precision of a surgeon who cuts the evil to save the body. "You spend more time thinking about your image than about the image of God. You care more about what the world thinks of you than about what God feels for you. Your soul is covered by a veil of vanity, and God's grace cannot penetrate." Elisa felt a mixture of shame and shock. She couldn't respond. He wasn't judging her. He was exposing the raw truth of her soul. He continued, with more sweetness, but the same firmness. Vanity is the first door the devil uses to enter. He doesn't need a great sin. He disguises himself as a compliment, as perfection, as the need to be loved, and he steals your heart little by little. He makes you love yourself so much that there's no room left to love God. Go and change your heart. Don't worry about appearing holy, but about being holy. Don't worry about your earthly beauty which fades, but about the beauty of your soul, which is eternal. Go and use humility as an antidote. Elisa left that confessional in tears, disoriented, but feeling a peace she had never felt before. She hadn't been forgiven for her sins, but she had been healed of her blindness. From that day on, she understood that vanity wasn't a triviality, but a mortal disease. She didn't stop caring for herself, but her motivation changed. She began to care about the beauty of her soul, not the beauty of her appearance. And she knew, for the rest of her life, that Padre Pio wasn't just judging her clothes, but seeing the danger that was hidden beneath them. He wasn't trying to be rude. He was trying to save her soul. The great lesson of Elisa's story, however, goes far beyond the healing of her own soul. Here's the point most people don't understand. We think vanity is a problem just for us, something that only affects us. But the great twist that Padre Pio reveals to us is that vanity is a sin that not only destroys your soul, but also prevents the conversion of others. How is that? When you act out of vanity, you become an invisible obstacle. You're no longer serving God, you're serving yourself. And by doing that, you don't become a beacon of faith for others. You become a mirror. People look at you and see only a perfect, unattainable image, distant. They don't see Christ's humility in you. They see arrogance disguised as spirituality. And instead of feeling attracted to the church, to the love of God, they feel judged small and they turn away. Your vanity, even if not verbalized, screams louder than any sermon. Padre Pio saw that vanity was a tool of the devil to keep people away from salvation. The devil doesn't need you to commit a big sin. He just needs you to become a bad example, an obstacle, a stumbling block in someone else's faith journey. And the worst part is that we don't realize it. We're concerned about doing the right thing, having the right appearance, saying the right words. And in the end, we fail to be the most important thing, a testimony of Christ. Padre Pio teaches us that the most powerful testimony doesn't come from perfection, but from humility. The true beauty that attracts people to God is not physical or intellectual beauty. It's the beauty of a humble soul, one that recognizes its flaws, but surrenders to God, trusting in His mercy. It's a soul that's not afraid to seem small because it knows that its greatness comes from God, not from itself. Vanity is the opposite of charity. When you act out of vanity, you're so focused on yourself that you don't have room for others. And without charity, there is no salvation. You can go to Mass every day, pray the Rosary, fast rigorously, but if your motivation is vanity, all of that is in vain. As the Bible says, if you don't have charity, you're like a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal, a hollow sound. Your vanity makes your life of faith a hollow noise, with no fruits for others, with no glory for God. The enemy doesn't just want you to sin, he wants you to become an instrument of sin. And vanity is the perfect tool for that. It blinds you to your own faults and makes you blind to the needs of others. It makes you care more about your reputation than the salvation of a soul. It's a subtle poison that destroys the life of faith from within and makes it useless to others. Padre Pio, with his gaze of holiness, saw this tragedy in action. He saw souls that had everything to be beacons of light, but because of vanity became mirrors that reflected only themselves, blinding others with their own shine. He saw souls that, because of pride, were turning away from God and taking others along with them. The lesson he leaves us is clear. The battle against vanity is not for our beauty, but for the salvation of others. Our humility is the light that will guide lost souls to the Father's house. And our charity, free from all vanity, is the only language God understands, and that can touch the hearts of others. We've seen the danger, we understand the trap, but now the question remains, how do we fight this? How do we protect ourselves from the poison that Padre Pio warned us about? He gave us the tools, but most of us don't use them. The fight isn't with our human strength, but with the grace of God. We need a spiritual arsenal. The battle against vanity requires a strategy, and Padre Pio teaches us the 3 pillars that can break down the wall of our ego and open our soul to God's grace. The first tool is the rosary of humility, a daily exorcism of pride. Padre Pio never let go of the rosary. He saw it not just as a prayer, but as a chain that bound us to Mary, the perfect model of humility. The rosary is a humble, repetitive prayer that forces us to leave our heads and enter our hearts. Vanity lives in our mind, in thoughts about what others think. The rosary pulls us out of this mental prison and places us on the ground, at the feet of Mary, the servant of the Lord. Each bead of the rosary is an opportunity to empty ourselves. With each Hail Mary, you empty yourself a little more of your ego, your need for approval. The rosary forces us to meditate on the life of Christ, which was the opposite of vanity. Think of the mysteries. The Annunciation. Mary, the embodiment of humility, prostrates herself and says yes to God's will, without caring what others would think. The birth of Jesus. The King of the universe is born in a manger, in the dark, in poverty, with no glamour. A slap in the face of vanity. The crucifixion. God made man is ridiculed, humiliated, stripped of all dignity. The lesson of Jesus is that true glory is in humility, sacrifice, and emptying oneself. The rosary is not just a prayer, it is an exorcism of pride. Padre Pio teaches us not just to pray the rosary, but to pray it with the intention of crushing our vanity. Do this for 30 days every day, and you will feel the difference. The peace that comes from humility is something no compliment can buy. The second tool is confession as spiritual surgery, the cure for the vain soul. Confession is the sacrament that most humbles us. We have to kneel and confess our weaknesses and sins. It's an act that deeply wounds our vanity. That's why we hate going. We worry about what the priest will think, what he will say. And that's vanity at work. It tells us that we are too good to admit our flaws. But Padre Pio teaches us that confession is the surgery that removes the cancer of vanity from our soul, and it's the only one that works. He would say that going to confession is not just asking for forgiveness, but surrendering completely to God's mercy, without reservations, without excuses, without pride. We have to strip ourselves of vanity and let the Father heal us. Confession is like a dark room we don't want anyone to enter. But when we open the door, God's light enters and reveals what was hidden, our small and large sins of vanity. The priest is the surgeon, and his absolution is the scalpel that cuts out the evil. The pain of confessing our shame and weakness is the price we pay for healing, and the price is nothing compared to the freedom we gain. Padre Pio would say that a good confession makes us feel like children, free, light, without the burden of ego. And the third tool is the ego fast, the sacrifice that kills vanity. We fast from food to get closer to God, but Padre Pio teaches us that we also need to fast from the ego. What is the ego fast? It's the decision to not seek praise for a day, to not boast about an achievement, to do good and not tell anyone, to stay silent when you have the right answer. But silence is what charity asks for. It's a fast from ourselves. It's a sacrifice that seems small, but it has immense power because it attacks vanity at its root. It reminds us that our reward doesn't come from men, but from God. The ego fast is the practice of diminishing ourselves in small ways every day. When someone compliments you, instead of growing proud, thank them and think, "All honor and glory to God, because it is He who acts through me." When you do something good, don't seek applause. Let your right hand not know what your left hand has done. When you're tempted to judge someone who is sinning, don't criticize them. Instead, ask God to give you the grace not to be like them. This is the ego fast. It's the practice of being small so that God can be great. Padre Pio warns us that vanity can lead to perdition, but he doesn't leave us alone in this battle. He gives us the rosary, confession, and the ego fast. He gives us a path to humility, which is the true door to heaven. Our salvation doesn't depend on our perfection, but on our ability to recognize our imperfection and surrender ourselves completely to God. The life of a saint is not a story of perfection, but of battle. Padre Pio fought against vanity every day. He was humiliated, misunderstood, but he never gave in to pride. He knew that the only path to salvation was to empty himself so that God could fill his heart. So the lesson today is clear. The enemy doesn't just want you to sin, he wants you to fall in love with yourself. And when that happens, the path back becomes almost impossible. The path to salvation is paved with humility. Now I want to know from you, what is your greatest difficulty with vanity? Is it the pursuit of likes, the desire for approval, the need to be right? I want you to comment down below. Share your struggle so that, together, with Padre Pio's intercession, we can fight against it. Remember, the battle against vanity begins with an act of humility. And if this video touched your heart and gave you a new perspective on your faith, I ask that you don't leave without liking this video. Like it so that YouTube's algorithm shows this message to other souls trapped in the vanity trap. And if you feel in your heart that this video was a blessing, share it with 3 people you love. It's a small act of charity that can make all the difference. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss the next videos. Together, let's continue to uncover the mysteries of faith and fight the spiritual battles we don't see. May God bless you.